We're live, Brad. And I'm
We are
tweeting
live.
as we are live. We are live now. Send
Love
tweet.
it. Yeah. Great start to the show. Yeah.
Zooming
But
start.
I
Zooming
thought you had
start.
something else for me. I was like, yeah, we are indeed live. Right.
No, this is a I got a lot for you. I mean, it was a massive recruiting weekend for Indiana. We'll get into all that in just a bit. Phil Steele literally just arrived at your doorstep. We were glossing over that before we came on air.
Look at that. Aiden Fisher right on the cover here. Wow. Unbelievable.
It's beautiful. It really is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
We got
My
some
first
Indiana
cover with the Hoosier on it. First one, I believe. Maybe. There might maybe I have one with Penix on it. Potentially. Hold on.
Having trouble with the Facebook stream here. I just want to remove it. Whatever.
No, I don't have a Penix one, but I do have a Spencer Sanders cover. So there's that. There we go.
That's insane. That's actually
Oklahoma
insane.
State Spencer Sanders, not Ole Miss Spencer Sanders.
We got Indiana basketball news. We got things happening in the world of sports reporting. We have things happening with the House settlement. But again, it was a massive recruiting weekend for Indiana. I guess we'll start going reverse chronological order. Just today, literally 2.5 hours ago, Indiana secured the commitment of LaRon Dues, athlete, defensive back, wide receiver out of Cardinal Mooney by way of Hurricane, West Virginia. Super pumped about this addition. He was the fourth commit of this past week for the Hoosiers. They're building ridiculous momentum on the trail, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be stopped. So, did you have a chance to even check out much of like what LaRon's going to be?
Yeah, it looks like LaRon's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. He's listed as an athlete, but he could end up on the offensive side of the ball. But I believe just based on who's been recruiting him, it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball with Ola Adams being the one recruiting him. Coming from,
I guess I want to say I guessed about Ola Adams doing the recruiting, by the way, just because I watched a bunch of LaRon Dues film and he was playing free safety. That's Ola Adams' room, so I'm assuming he was doing the recruiting. But there's also people who think that he profiles a little bit more as a corner, so who knows? That's Rod Ojong's room. But so I jumped the gun maybe potentially on giving credit. I don't know where the credit should go, but all those guys are awesome. So
when I think of LaRon Dues, I think of Jaja Boyd type athlete, can kind of do it all. If you remember, Jaja Boyd came in as an athlete as well. Obviously, was going to go on the defensive side of the ball no matter what. Around the same build, 5'9", 180, from Florida. We love that. Cardinal Mooney right in your old backyard, which is pretty sweet. And oh my God, you're getting tripped up the socks already. But yeah, I mean, I see Jaja Boyd. I see yeah, I think Rover, Devon Boykin, who's going to be the starter at the Rover this year for Indiana. Kind of an undersized cornerback type with also, in the box skills. That is how I envision LaRon Dues. By the way, totally passes the name test. If you guys don't know about the name test, it's just like a sick name, kind of going off vibes. Like usually those guys like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, like cool names, those guys end up panning out. And LaRon Dues is just another one. LeBron Bond comes to mind when you think about the name test. But yeah, good to have it. One last thing I like about LaRon Dues: 0 stars on 24/7. Remember the last time that happened? Ro Hardy. There we go. So
anytime. I was going to say,
he had Oregon in his Final 5. I don't think he's too under the radar. But,
that's what I'm saying. Like he was
that's
starting free safety for Cardinal Mooney. They were a very good team playing in Sarasota.
Yeah, beating out another elite Big Ten school for a recruit is just always going to be a huge win. So, I mean, if Dan Lanning wanted him on his defense, I'm sure we want him on our defense too. So, yeah, excited to see what LaRon's able to do. He could play corner, could play rover. A little undersized for a full-time safety role, but you never know. But yeah, I see him.
Well, he's also I was going to say variously listed at like 5'9", 5'10", whatever. He kind of profiles a little bit like Louis Moore as well. And there was a Buffton Prime breakdown of how good Louis Moore was at the back end of last year. But he's just a guy who people view as undersized, who's just back line of defense, like sure tackler and then all that stuff. So it's like, especially when this staff is beating the sites when it comes to these guys, like you just said, his final 5 included Indiana, it included Oregon, it included West Virginia, among others. Like when they're beating the sites, like I'm just completely bought in on the talent. And so I'm jacked up for that one for sure.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite commitment so far because of those 0 stars. Like one thing that's very common with, Indiana recruiting since Signetti's gone there is that they really look for football instincts. We're going to go back to Ro Hardy for that. The kid just has a nose for the football. We'll see what LaRon Dues ever. It's really hard to put that Ro Hardy pressure on LaRon Dues, but
no.
big name, big shoes to fill, different positions, but yeah, love getting some Florida. How many Florida commits do we have now?
Actually, this is a good piggyback because Dues wasn't even the only Sarasota kid to commit to the Hoosiers in the past. Like since we last spoke, they also flipped Kevontay Hugan. He was committed to Louisville. He took his official visit last week, decommitted from Louisville. Now he's a Hoosier. He is the higher rated, I guess you could say, because he is 4 stars on 3, pushing on the upper level, like the top of Indiana's class right now. He was just named, I think, like standout performer at one of the Florida State camps. Like he's a monster on the edge. He's from Booker High School. I don't honestly know if they play each other, but those high schools are like 15, 20 minutes from each other.
I'm sure they play each other if they're 15, 20 minutes away from each other, but you never know. There's plenty of big schools like that. I just can't imagine. I mean, LA could be like that, but I can't imagine Tampa has that many high schools.
It's Sarasota, and Cardinal Mooney is a private school, Catholic private school, and Booker High School is a public school.
Okay, that's good insight. Yeah, Hugan, I heard he I definitely projects as an edge. Ideally, the stud as more of the undersized edge. I mean, we'll see how his development turns out, but definitely going to be a D end type player. Ideally, the stud. Very similar to a couple of guys that we brought in this past year. Think of Burris. Think of
it is. Well, I was going to say it's funny you went Burris first because Burris is the other defensive lineman that was flipped from Louisville.
That is funny. I didn't do that on purpose, but let's pretend I did. But yeah, flipping a guy like that, literally decommits from Louisville within 24 hours. He's an Indiana Hoosier commit. And one little tidbit from his commitment that I heard is that he won defensive MVP. No, he won trenches MVP at a Florida State camp this year. So that's huge. That's both O-line, D-line. He won the MVP for both sides of the ball in the trenches. He's a winner. And another theme of what you look for an Indiana commit, and he checks all the boxes. So, yeah, 2 huge Florida commits, which I double-checked. Those are only 2 Florida commits. We just got them. So, yeah, well done.
It's funny, too.
I want to give credit to you just having that Sarasota presence yourself for so long.
Yeah, 100%. Well, actually,
this is a long time coming.
It is funny, but I don't have a relationship at all with LaRon Dues, and I didn't have any influence in any of this recruiting, but I am friends with his uncle.
Oh, fun.
Funny enough.
Yeah. Small world.
So yeah, I'm pumped up. Again, I had absolutely nothing to do with the recruitment, and I'm not involved at any level, but just cool stuff. You just meet people and you don't know who people are. And you talk about football. It's funny. We actually talked about Chris McCorkle. That's how we initially started talking. It became like friends at work. Yeah.
He didn't end up going to.
No, so Chris McCorkle was a Cardinal Mooney kid that committed to Indiana, decommitted, ended up at Kansas. But that just kind of goes to show you how that our defensive back coaches have pull in that area. Like they're not just going into Florida blind. Like Cardinal Mooney's a place they've been able to have some success at, which is really cool because they're a great school.
Have you kissed and made up with the Red Sox front office like John's asking in the chat?
I'll save my Red Sox rant for the end of the podcast, but I promise you'll get one.
I'm just pissed he went to the Giants. That's my rival. They can't.
Not that
I'm worried about the Dodgers or anything. Anyway,
last note on LaRon Dues before we hop into the other 2 commits, both 2 Indiana kids from this class.
we're on Kevontay Hugan.
No, but I wanted to just I had another note. Byron Baldwin Jr. was in the official visit pictures, was pretty active. I don't know how active in the recruiting, but was pretty vocal, at least leading up to the commitment. It just kind of brought me back to an interview Byron Baldwin did when he first committed to Indiana, basically saying that he's going to do everything he can to help bring players in. And this is just another example of like doing things he didn't have to be doing. But that just shows you the type of players you have in your program. So shout out Byron Baldwin Jr.
It speaks volumes to the culture that they do truly care. It's not like they're there just to get their scholarship and play 4 years and potentially shoot for the NFL. Like they're trying to win. You know, they're trying to have guys around them to allow them to win a championship. And obviously, if you go to Indiana at this point, you're bought into that vision of eventually winning a title. We talked about that 5-star from Texas that called Indiana title within the next 3 years. So, you know, just seeing that, you know, seeing stories like that, Byron Baldwin getting involved, because obviously he's a young freshman, might even redshirt this year. I doubt that, but, you know, he's going to be around the program for about, you know, 3 or 4 years. So he obviously wants, you know, I love seeing that leadership so early on from a freshman. I think is the biggest takeaway. He's clearly putting himself in that position to be, once he is a junior, senior, he's going to be one of the vocal leaders on the team. And you want that from your most talented player, because I've been on teams where the most talented player was not the vocal leader. I'm referring to an NFL champion himself, and wasn't definitely the best player on the team, but wasn't necessarily the best vocal leader. And maybe that's why we weren't able to beat St. John Bosco that year, despite all the talent we had. Who knows? But, you know, those things go a long way. Having your best players be your best leaders, you know, you hear it a lot, you know, from great coaches like Spoelstra and Popovich. I'm talking basketball right now, but you know, those concepts apply to all sports, right? And that's what you want.
Yep. Did you have a closing point on Hugan as well? Because that's another massive commit. The defensive side of the ball for this class is utterly ridiculous. The defensive line for this class is utterly ridiculous. I think 2 of the 4 highest rated guys in the class are both on the defensive line. The other 2 highest rated guys in the class are both defensive backs, and Henry Ollinger's up there too, linebacker. Like this is like they're stacking the defensive side of the ball in a really meaningful way, and they're not forgetting about the offense. I actually sold it short. It's not 4 commits. It's actually 5 commits. Jayreon Campbell, running back, I believe out of Powder Springs, Georgia, committed to the Hoosiers. He had offers from Alabama, among others. Massive commitment. You watch his huddle and the way he's able to like bounce outside and the power in his lower half, and just you can see why Alabama wanted him. But a massive commitment out of the weekend. And offensive guard CJ, is it Scifres, and tight end Parker Elmore on the offensive side of the ball. Like there's so much going on this weekend in terms of Indiana recruiting.
Yeah. I mean, 2 Indiana guys. One thing that's really been surprising is that as good of a recruiter Tom Allen was, feels like the stranglehold that Cignetti has on the state of Indiana, which, you know, we've talked about on the side, maybe isn't the most fruitful state for talent, but I mean, they're getting guys like CJ Scifres, however you want to say it. We'll get the name right, from Center Grove, obviously a producer of talent. You know, we talk about the Taven Jackson, Trace Jackson Davis are the first that come to mind. You know, the Cherry brothers from Center Groves, that paves the way for, you know, maybe Tyler Cherry's little brother might get a commitment. Maybe he doesn't have a real offer. We'll see. I'm not trying to insinuate about him right now. But, you know, 6'6", 325 in high school right now. Being that size, that young, he projects as a large guard, honestly. Just being able to move and get comfortable with that weight is going to be, you know, very important for him as he develops and things like that. So huge commitment. It feels like, yeah, it's a crazy stranglehold. I think that puts us at about, I'm trying to count live right now, like 5 or 6 Indiana commits from the state, which is unbelievable. You don't see that too often from an Indiana class.
Casimir
Even when
Hicks,
Tom Allen was there, it wasn't like, I think it's just because it's a strong Indiana class this year. So they're actually able to find really good players in their backyard, which is awesome, obviously.
Yeah, depending on which list you look at, they have like the 1, the 5, the 7, the 9. They also have the number 1 player in Wisconsin too. But yeah, back to this weekend. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Do you think? How did you pronounce it? Is it Scifres?
Scifres, Skiffers,
Scifres?
could be Skiffers,
Scifres?
could be
We're gonna have to
Skiffers,
get a.
could
We're
be
gonna have to get a
Ciphers,
pronunciation.
Cyfreeze, Skyfreeze. It's probably Skiffers. If I had to guess, if I had to put money on it, I'd go Skiffers.
I like looking at offensive linemen and going like, that's a Bob Bostad guy. And I know like all the guys that he recruits are going to be Bob Bostad guys. So it's like, it's almost like a catch 22.
I would imagine. But he is the O-line coach. So
yeah,
it's kind of a nothing statement. But what do we mean by Bostad guys? Guys that love driving dudes into the pavement. That's what Bob Bostad guy is. A guy that likes to finish
versatile
his blocks in high school.
Big and versatile.
Doesn't have any remorse because, as a D1 O lineman, typically you're going up against a guy where you have probably 50 pounds on at least. And they're just continuing to drive him in with no regard for human life, zero remorse. You just love to see that. You don't want Bob Bostad does not recruit gentle giants. Let's just put it that way. No,
he does not. And then Parker Elmore, the tight end. He's another guy. I was going to just kind of set you up. Kind of interesting that he transferred high schools because of the way the transfer rules shook out or whatever his particular situation was. He wasn't able to play football, so he hasn't played football for a year. Back when he was playing football, he played quarterback. Indiana's recruiting him as a tight end. This is kind of another one of those things where, like, when the staff is early on somebody and like another kid who on most major sites doesn't even have a ranking, I'm all in, full blown all in.
Love it. Definitely an under the radar guy. Doesn't have a ton of his offer sheet, doesn't blow you away, but despite that, still has a very good rating on 24/7 at least. Obviously, the stars really don't matter, but like you said, the fact that he has that amount of buzz going into his senior year, where he didn't play his junior year, which is like a pivotal year for recruiting. And he didn't even play. And the fact that he was able to even get entertained by Indiana, clearly we were lucky that he was in our own backyard. We were able to find him. Columbus, very good athletes come out of there, from what I've heard. So, yeah, super pumped for him. 2 tight ends in this class, which is, makes a lot of sense considering the lack of depth with West leaving. We look at that.
Sam West, not CJ West.
Yeah. With Sam West leaving, it comes down to Stays, Nowakowski, and Bomba, who are likely all gone next year. And that leaves us with Thierry and
Parker, right?
Parker. Yeah. And that's it. I think Bomba might have one more year, but let's shoot it straight here. Bomba's not going to be the starting tight end next year. So they might bring in a transfer and then go with those 4 young guys in the back end with Bomba, who's a very good blocker, but cannot be your main pass catching option at that position. He's just not bendy athletic enough to get really enough yards after catch. He's also, he's not the best receiver. So, yeah, I love their approach, bringing in 2 6'5" tight ends. We're not going, the Nowakowski route where it's more of an H-back. These are true Ys for the football nerds out there. Ys are tight ends. H's are, Stays is your Y. Nowakowski is your F, type H-back type role in the offense. So, yeah, awesome to see in terms of how they continue to construct the roster, getting ahead of things, and getting the guys they want, because this is the summer. It's not like they're scrambling for commits right now, and they're just filling up the class because these guys are passing the tests for them. So, it's a team effort. Iron sharpens iron. So, building it this way, I think is just the right way to go. I'm gonna trust the process with anything roster construction, recruiting. That's thing that he does. So, yeah.
Did you
I mean, the momentum is palpable. It's insane.
Did you get a chance to look into Jerryon Campbell?
I've not watched him. The one thing that stood out to me is that, Georgia, McEachern, that's a big time high school. A lot of talent. I recognized it, so it's having really never really been to Georgia. So yeah, McEachern, I love it. I'm gonna look at his commitment list real quick. Hold on.
I was gonna say, so
Yeah. What stood out about Jerryon Chandler for you?
Well, first of all, his offer list. Second of all, you then turn on the huddle and his ability to kind of break through tackles. But it was more so kind of how it sets up
He's
Indiana's.
a Bama offer. Okay, there you go.
It's more so how it sets up their room. If you look at, I think it was Bite Size Bison tweeted this out, but their underclass RB room is now Kobe Martin, Sean Quono, and Jayreon Campbell. It's a nice set of backs they have coming
likely going to be the
and
one
and BB is coming back
with BB, and they're probably going to bring in another transfer running back to fight for that starting spot and fight for reps. I mean, that's going to be another killer room next year. Like, it's like you don't even. It's like, why do we even have the podcast? It's like we just know it's always going to be good, right? Like there's nothing.
Coach Juice and Coach John Miller are just doing their things.